Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up on our Kentucky Derby edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at the first jewel in racing's Triple Crown, the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby, as well as three other stakes races on the undercard, the Humana Distaff, the Churchill Downs Stakes for sprinters, and the Grade 1 Turf Classic. JK's play of the day. He's got a superfecta and an exacta in the Kentucky Derby. David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight, of course, focuses on the Derby. Peter Thomas Fornatel will have Derby opinions in his Tournament Talk segment, and then the DRF Breeding Report. Joe Nevels and Nicole Russo from DRF Breeding will take you through the pedigrees of the major contenders in the Kentucky Derby. Tons to cover, plus Mike Welsh's exclusive Clocker Report. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our hot topic, and it's the first jewel in racing's Triple Crown, the Run for the Roses. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 $2 million Kentucky Derby at the classic distance of 1.25 miles. For expanded stakes previews of every graded stakes race at Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel, and you can access free Formulator Pass performances for the Derby on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Mike Beer, I looked at the DRF Saturday paper. 20 handicappers made their selections. Not one picked Magnum Moon. Undefeated for Todd Pletcher. Why is this horse so cold?
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? It makes you wonder if this horse is actually going to go off third choice in the race like the morning line has him. I don't know why nobody likes him. All I can do is speak for myself. And the thing that I really don't like about him more than anything else, I do think he's a good horse, is I just don't see the improvement that this horse has shown from start 1 to start number 4. It seems like he's running the same race over and over again. His most recent start is an easy win. We'll look at it now, the Arkansas Derby, Grade 1. It makes him 4 for 4. I mean, he just had everything his own way in this race. Slow pace, right to the front, really heads up ride, I thought, from Luis Saez, and here he is just drifting way out in the stretch as he gets away from this field. You know, it's a nice victory for him. I do think he has to improve to win the Kentucky Derby, and I just don't know how sure I am he's going to be able to do that.
Not comfortable with him drifting out like this in the stretch. Not sure he can get away with such antics in a field like the Kentucky Derby, but hard to knock an undefeated runner. Matt Todd's got 4 in here. Audible's going to take his share of money based on the great work he did in South Florida. How do you rate the Florida Derby winner?
I think he's very good. I think he's the most likely winner of all the Pletcher entrants in here. We're going to go back and take a look at the Florida Derby. I think he and the runner-up, Hofberg, I think they both acquitted themselves very nice. They got a big pace to run at. There's no question about that. But at the same time, this horse has paired up 99s in his 2 starts as a 3-year-old. Okay, we know Todd can do some things down in South Florida, and it doesn't always translate elsewhere. But I don't really have any knocks against this horse other than I'm going to be very curious to find out how Javier rides this horse, because he may not be in the easiest of positions breaking from post 5. He gets some speed to the inside, some speed to the outside. He could easily get shuffled that first time by the Twin Spires.
Well, we know how Mike Smith's going to try to ride Justify. Given an alert break, he is going to be forward, on the lead, more likely sitting second off of Promises Fulfilled. Mike, you'd take that any day.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. I think that's the trip that you're hoping for, and I'm sure that's the trip that the connections of Justify are hoping for. And we'll see if he can get it, because in a lot of ways, it's one of the only things that can really trip him up in this race, I think. I don't think his talent is really deniable. We'll just see what kind of trip he can work out in a big, bulky field, and the pace could be fast. Justify's most recent prep race was the fastest prep race of all of them, the Santa Anita Derby, and I just thought he ran really well in this race. Yes, he got loose on the lead in this race, so he basically had things his own way, but I also feel like he denied a really good horse in this race in Bolt D'Oro, and it's not like Bolt D'Oro didn't try to get him. Bolt D'Oro tried to get him. He would not let him into the race. I just liked this performance from him, so I've just been taken by all of his races. I'm equally taken just by the confidence I feel like Bob Baffert showed in this horse. He has really handled this horse like he thinks he's the real thing, and we'll find out on Saturday if he's the real thing.
He's been absolutely brilliant throughout a variety of running styles, a variety of racing surfaces and distances. We'll see if he gets the 1.25 miles at Churchill Downs. Matt, Justify, certainly impressive throughout his career. Mendelssohn's got some credentials as well, however.
Certainly does, and he's also coming into the Kentucky Derby on the heels of a very impressive final prep over in the UAE Derby, albeit over a very speed-friendly racetrack at Meydan the night that he went out there and strutted his stuff. He won by over 18 lengths. I think Mendelssohn is arguably as talented, if not more talented than anyone else in this field, including Justify. And it's not just because of what we're taking a look at right now, where this horse just goes out and buries a mediocre field. We've talked about the pedigree ad nauseum. He's a half to beholder. He's a half to into mischief. Perhaps this is what he's wanted to do all along, is run on dirt. He has Aidan O'Brien in his corner. I understand some people are a little bit dubious about O'Brien on dirt, but whenever he's run horses on dirt, they're not meant for the dirt. They're usually turf horses trying the dirt just to see if they're good enough. This horse, I think, has it in spades. I think if there's a runaway winner, I think it's Mendelssohn.
Matt, I'm with you on this one. I'm going to go with Mendelssohn as well with my top selection. I understand anyone that's going to say he's a little bit dressed up. Maybe you're not supposed to take him at a short price based on a runaway win over a biased track against a weak field. I just love the way this horse goes, and he travels so beautifully and nicely. If he can get away from the gate in order, and that's often a challenge for some of these European horses, I think he can find a spot in the second flight, and I think Ryan Moore's goal is simple. Let's follow Justify. When Smith pushes the button on Justify, let's go after him, and let's see how good we are with Mendelssohn. I love the way this horse travels over the ground. You mentioned his pedigree. Lots of things to like about Mendelssohn. I just hope he drifts up a little bit off of his morning line, and I'm not sure that's going to happen, but he's my top pick in the Derby. We talked about Mendelssohn's pedigree. I'm sure that Joe Nevels and Nicole Russo of DRF Breeding are going to talk about it as well, but they've got pedigree information on all of the major contenders in the DRF Breeding Report, and then Peter Thomas Fornatel's got some betting strategies for the Kentucky Derby as well. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hi guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Louisville, Kentucky with colleague Joe Nevels. Of course, the field is now set for the Kentucky Derby, and we're going to take a look at some pedigree notes for the field to supplement your handicapping. We'll go in post position order through the overflow field, 20 in the main body of the field, blended citizen, the also eligible. At the time of filming, he has until Friday morning scratch time to draw into the race. But as we look at sort of the first set of gates in the field, you'll immediately see the first of an incredible 4 starters in the race for the late sire Scat Daddy, that is Flame Away. Another in these inside gates, Free Drop Billy, really bred to love a route of ground. His half-brother Hawkbill, a Group 1 winner at 12 furlongs. On the inside there is Firenze Fire, who's from the family of Broomer of the Year Oatsy, of course the dam of Shackleford, plus an Alabama winner. You would think some stamina in that family, but Joe, your average winning distance statistics actually put him near the back of the pack.
When you look at the average progeny winning distance of his sire and dam and step that up against all the other horses in the field, he's tied for last with promises fulfilled. Firenze Fire is from the first crop of Poseidon's Warrior, who has the lowest AWD figure of this year's Derby sires at 6.44 furlongs. Now what this means is that when you take the distance of every race that a Poseidon's Warrior foal has won and average them out, it comes out to less than 6.5 furlongs. Not ideal for a race like this, even for a first-year sire. To compare, the sire at the top of the list is Arch, sire of Instilled Regard, who has an AWD number of 8.2 furlongs, which is over a mile. Very impressive. Firenze Fire is the first foal out of his dam, My Every Wish. Now, his 4 wins have come at an average distance of 6 3/4 furlongs, putting My Every Wish second to last in this year's class of brood mares. The top mare is Trenza, the dam of Free Drop Billy, who you previously mentioned. An average winning distance of 9.61 furlongs, nearly the classic distance itself, helped along very much so by the international success of Hawkbill.
Moving on in the field, the next group of starting gates as we work our way toward the outside, we encountered 2 major contenders. Juvenile champion Good Magic, who's coming off his win in the Bluegrass, is one of 3 in the race for Curlin, who has produced a classic winner or classic placed runner from each of his first 5 crops to race. An incredible statistic that he has a good shot to keep going with 3 strong contenders in this field. Right next to him in the gate will be the morning line favorite, Justify. He is one of Scat Daddy's 4, trying to buck the curse of Apollo, having not raced as a 2-year-old. He is unbeaten. He comes in off this impressive win in the Santa Anita Derby, and I thought he looked fabulous in his first morning on the track at Churchill Downs.
Of the 4 sons of Scat Daddy in the field, Justify, Mendelssohn, Flame Away, and Combatant, Justify finished the highest of that group by average winning distance rankings combined at 9th ninth of the field, mostly because Scat Daddy's a bit of an enigma. We all know that he's capable of siring an elite runner, certainly, but his AWD of 6.94 furlongs puts him 11th among the Derby sires. He's got the two favorites in Justify and Mendelssohn in this group, so that number is going to be put in a test in a big way on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Moving on in the field, Medaglia d'Oro, sire of Preakness winner Rachel Alexandra, also has two in here. You see them right here next to each other in the gate. Interestingly, they're bred on the same cross. Bolt d'Oro out of an AP Indy mare and enticed out of the multiple Grade 1 winner It's Tricky by AP Indy's son Mineshaft. Joe, Hofburg, a half to Grade 1 winner Emollient, also factors well in your stamina statistics.
Hofburg getting a lot of wise guy buzz early on heading into the Derby. He's by Tappet, who ranks second by average winning distance among this year's Derby sire class at 7.58 furlongs. So that's pretty impressive. He's still seeking his first Kentucky Derby winner, but he sired a trio of Belmont Stakes winners, Toneless in 2014, Creator in 2016, and Tappert last year. So has plenty of distance credentials behind him. Soothing Touch, the Dam of Hofburg, was third among the Derby broodmares, with her three winners succeeding at an average distance of 8.6 furlongs. Her first full, as you said, Empire Maker filly Emollient is a Grade 1 winner at 1.25 miles on the turf. So on both sides of this, Juddmonte does not mess around breeding cheap speed, and this is the culmination of that. Gotta love what you see out of Hofburg.
Continuing right along into the outside half of the field and into the auxiliary gate, a couple of pricey horses represented in the group you're looking at here, including Mendelssohn, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last fall and then graduated to dirt successfully, winning the UAE Derby by de mile. Thought the Scat Daddy colt would take to the dirt all along. He is, of course, half to the Great Beholder, four-time Eclipse Award champion. And Joe, we've known Mendelssohn since way back when. We watched him top the 2016 Keeneland September yearling sale at $3 million.
There are some horses that you know are going to be a big deal as soon as you see their page in the sale catalog, and then you see them in person and they live up to the hype. Mendelssohn was very much one of those horses, a dynamite physical from one of the top broodmares going right now by a sire in huge demand. He was a massive score for Clarkland Farms breeding operation and continues to live up to that price tag for the Coolmore operation. He's done it all. He's won on turf. He's won on synthetic. He's won on dirt. He's won Grade 1s in the U.S. He's won in the UAE, he's won in Europe. And with credentials all over the world, all over the map, all over the card, I'll be interested to see where Coolmore decides to stand him at stud when his time comes, because he's done it all. You could put him anywhere.
And last but not least, taking a look at the far outside of the gate, two more for Curlin here. The consistent Solimini comes from one of the most active families in the stud book right now. And Vino Rosso, the Wood Memorial winner, who we'll watch in a second here, he's from the immediate family of narrow Belmont runner-up Commissioner and Breeders' Cup Sprint runner-up Laugh Track. Watching him train in the mornings, I really loved what I've seen from him. He floats over the track. I think he'll love the Derby distance and might love the Belmont distance even more.
There is absolutely zero question that Curlin is a classic sire. But from the average winning distance rankings, the standout of those two for me is actually Solimini, who tied at the top of the overall rankings. Curlin ranked third among the Derby sires with an average winning distance of 7.57 furlongs, so about 7.5 furlongs, which is just 100th of a furlong behind second place Tappet. Solimini is out of Surf Song, who posted an average winning distance of 8.62 furlongs, which ranks her second among the mares. Of Surf Song's 5 winners from 7 foals to race, Solimini is the only one to have won at a race at a distance shorter than 1 1/16. He broke his maiden at 6.5 furlongs. However, Solimini is also the only stakes place runner among his siblings, so he's a standout in a lot of different ways.
Well, if you pick up Saturday's edition of Daily Racing Form, you'll be able to see what all of our handicappers think of the Kentucky Derby. But I can tell you that I'll be keying around a couple of those Curlins, using Good Magic and Vino Rosso, who have really been training with enthusiasm. Also using Justify, who, as we discussed, definitely has some stamina on his page and really seemed to take to things in his first morning at Churchill. Joe, any thoughts on where you're headed?
Justify is a freak. Once he got past drawing a good post, it would take something unfortunate happening at the break for him to not run away with this thing in my eyes. I think everyone's got to get past him, and if they do, they're going to win the Kentucky Derby.
All right, so that is your field for the Kentucky Derby. More analysis of the entire action-packed weekend at Churchill Downs will be coming to you from DRF TV all week, including these 2 special editions of Out of the Gate. Stick with us all weekend to raise your game under the Twin Spires.
Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you on Out of the Gate to discuss the Kentucky Derby. Just as we did with yesterday's Kentucky Oaks, I want to take some lessons learned from my work with Mike Maloney on his book, Betting with an Edge, available in the DRF store, or from me on Twitter. Signed copies available via @LoomsBoldly if you're interested. One of the things Mike writes about extensively in the book is wagering strategy. Wagering strategy can take a situation like this year's Kentucky Derby for me, where you have maybe not the most creative handicapping opinion, and enable you to make a successful and intelligent bet by betting correctly. And I consulted with my friend, professional player Sean Borman, on putting together these tickets we're going to share with you on the show. We're going to start off, though, by looking at how I see this year's Kentucky Derby in terms of ability figures. This is a concept we talk about extensively in Betting with an Edge, where you look at the past performances of each horse and essentially rate this horse where they are in their form coming into the race. I have this as a pretty strong edition of this year's Kentucky Derby, with a couple of horses who stand out as key horses for the top of vertical exotics, and a couple of very obvious horses who'll need to be included, who are not far behind the best of these, and yet are going to be huge prices, I believe, talking about Noble, Indy, and Lone Sailor as the horses to mix in. But the main opinion here, and the concept that I took in writing down these bets, was that I think that the 2 favorites, Mendelssohn and Justify, one of them is going to win. And I want to write bets where, unlike yesterday where we did a double key where 2 of the favorites had to be in there, in this instance, one of these favorites is going to have to win. It'll be great if the other runs in behind, but they don't both have to run in. My opinion is simply that one of these horses will win. So we start off with a very spready trifecta ticket with these 2 horses on top, and then various key contenders in second and third. You can go ahead and take a look at the screen and see the numbers there. I added one additional horse, Combatant, as a horse who just has the look to me of a third and fourth type horse who we threw in there. 50-cent minimum tries in the Kentucky Derby. There's the $49 ticket, keying those 2 favorites with a bunch of horses that I do like. Used most of the logicals in behind, took a little bit of a stand against Magnum Moon in here, and then we're going to come back with some press tickets, which are going to use horses who were included in that previous iteration, but this time we're going to have them for a good amount of money if they happen to run third to the 2 key horses. And that's we're going to mix in those 2 long prices we talked about, and also have a little bit of an emphasis on the very logical contenders to me, Bolt Doro and Bolt Doro, as well as Audible. And then we're going to go ahead and use another concept from Betting with an Edge, the kill ticket. Oh, I forgot about the savers with presses. I apologize. We're going to press a little bit with those value horses in the second spot. That's just going to be a $1 try in case I'm almost right about my main opinion. And then you come back with the kill bet, where we really lay into the main opinion and have a chance to make some real money with Lone Sailor and Noble Indy running either in second place or third place with the 2 key horses on top. Even though that will be one of the lower paying trifectas in the whole array that we've listed, by having it multiple times, it will be a fantastic outcome, something to raise a mint julep to, hopefully, about 7 o'clock Friday night when they finish running underneath the Twin Spires in this year's Kentucky Derby. That's the idea anyway. Hopefully we're going to have some joy. Hopefully you're going to have some joy. Lots of great information all over the Daily Racing Form website. You can check out a lot of my work, drf.com/YouTube, DRF Players Podcast, also some special webinars I was fortunate to host this week Lots of Derby doings everywhere at drf.com, and lots of great reporting in the paper and on the website as well. Make sure to check that all out. Stay tuned for more Out of the Gate.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for a Grade 1 stakes for filly sprinters. It's the Grade 1 Humana Distaff at 7 furlongs. $300,000 is the purse. Carded as race number 6 on Kentucky Derby Saturday. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Churchill on Friday and Saturday, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, the morning line favorite, the 5 Lewis Bay, the co-second choices, the 1 Finley's Lucky Charm, the 8 American Gal, they all come out of the Madison, a Grade 1 stakes race at Keeneland, which featured a blanket finish. Your thoughts on that race?
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you're handicapping the Humana Distaff, you need to make a decision. Do you like the Madison or don't you like the Madison? We're going to take a look at the stretch run right now. I'm always dubious of seeing a blanket finish, and there's about 6 horses that are going to be across the wire, separated by about a length and a half. You've got Finley's Lucky Charm in here, who ultimately prevails. You got American Gal in here, who for the long layoff, she did a lot of work, and she tired just a little bit at the end. And then you got Lewis Bay and Salty possibly, but I just look at this race and go, somebody's crying out. Somebody's got to take this thing over, and unfortunately, no one really does it emphatically, and that's kind of what led me to fade this race as a whole. I think there's a lot of talent in there, but it's just difficult for me to look at that race and say, yeah, one of those is going to deliver a superior performance on Saturday afternoon.
Mike, like Matt, you want a horse that's not coming out of the Madison. Ivy Bell was always a nice horse before being transferred over to Todd Pletcher, but she broke a little bit better last time out, and that's really the key to her success on Saturday, isn't it? Can she get out of the gate?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, she's not a great gate horse, so she does have to break, but, you know, part of it is that Madison. I'm just not thrilled with that race overall, so I just sort of want to maybe stay away from those horses a little bit. That's definitely part of it, but the other part of it is, I just think Ivy Bell's a good horse. I think she was a good horse for her prior trainer. I think she maybe even took a step forward first time for Pletcher. We'll look at the inside information now. This is the first start out of the Pletcher barn. She did bobble a little to start, but she got forward right away in there. It wasn't a big deal. She sat in behind. You can see her there. She had to let the runner-up in that race, Jordan's Henny, clear her first. Once that horse cleared her, she got out to the outside, and she just runs this field over it. I love the way she finishes in here. I love the 7 furlong distance for her. She's 5-1 on the morning line. Illman, give me 5-1 on the morning line. I'm betting this horse.
That is a ridden-out win despite being blind switched at the quarter pole. A really nice performance. Matt, I know you're a fan of Ivy Bell, but I know you're also a fan of these filly and mare sprinters out in Southern California. And Selcourt might be the queen right now. Sky Diamonds has been in tough against her in her last few races.
Yeah, I love Ivy Bell. I picked her second. I was torn between her and Sky Diamonds. I ultimately went with Sky Diamonds just mainly because I feel like you can make a little bit of an excuse for the Santa Monica. The pace didn't materialize, and for one reason or another, she wasn't really ready to fire. And look, Selcourt's turned into a monster. But 2 starts back, we're going to take a look at the Las Flores. At 6 furlongs, okay, she can't quite get to Selcourt, but we just talked about it. Selcourt has turned into an absolute superstar out there. And I like the try-in here from Sky Diamonds. And I understand she's 0-3 at the 7/8 distance, but there's a part of me that actually thinks that 7/8 is better than 6 or 6.5 for her. And it just, I don't know, it's one of those things where I look at it, I think the turf horses on the East Coast are better than the West Coast ones. And I think in general, the West Coast dirt horses are better than the East Coast. If I can get everybody to the 5-1 on Sky Diamonds, I'll use her.
I'm going to take a horse out of the Madison, and that's American Gal, who won the signature race for 3-year-old filly sprinters last year, the Grade 1 Test Stakes at Saratoga. Now, unfortunately for American Gal and her connection, she was sidelined and missed the rest of the year. She made her first start off of that long layoff in the Madison, and I thought she did a lot of work, setting the fast pace, being pressured by Finley's Lucky Charm, and digging in pretty gamely considering the layoff down towards the inside. This is her second start of the form cycle. The connections have said this has been their main early season goal all along, and I love this outside post. This time she's outside of Finley's Lucky Charm, where she can either sit a pressing trip in the 2 or 3 path, or if she has enough speed and Finley's Lucky Charm wants to hand it to her, she can go to the lead. I'm expecting a tighter version of American Gal in the Humana Distaff, and she'll be my top selection. Mike Welsh has been following the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby horses for the last week and a half on site at Churchill Downs. Let's go to his exclusive Clocker report right now.
Mike Welch coming to you from Churchill Downs with the last of our workout videos leading up to this year's Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. Before I start, I want to thank all of you for tuning in on a regular basis, hopefully throughout the past 10 days. I hope you enjoyed what we've done here. I also want to thank my camera person and producer, Barbara Livingston, without whom, believe me, these videos would not be possible. I'm standing in front of stall 14 because that's the post position that Mendelssohn will break from on Saturday, and Mendelssohn was the horse everybody was waiting to see this morning. They had to wait a little longer. Mendelssohn came out after the Oaks Derby session with 3 of his buddies from trainer Aidan O'Brien's barn. They hacked around about a mile and an eighth, the reverse direction, and canted another mile. Mendelssohn, obviously a bit of a high-strung horse. He also likes to talk to the crowd. He was hollering at the fans. He had them laughing when he came by the grandstand in front of me the first time. But that's just Mendelssohn. He got a little warm this morning, but that's to be anticipated. Like I said, he's a bit of a high-strung horse. It's a little warm today. Nothing I would take too seriously. He was on his left lead down the stretch, but that can be common too for the European horses when they gallop over here. All in all, he looked good though, and it's not anything you would have seen today that would have swayed your opinion on him coming in. If you like him, you're still going to play him. If you're against him, you can be against him. Nothing we saw this morning to sway you from Mendelssohn, but he did make a pretty good appearance out on the racetrack. Justify made another great appearance on the racetrack today. Another super gallop. He did avoid a potentially disastrous situation, though. When he first came out, he was jogging by the grandstand, and Sassy Sienna, one of the fillies in the Oaks, acted up a little bit. Looked like she might run into him for a second, but fortunately that situation was avoided, and Justify had another great morning. Might be a little repetitious, but Good Magic and Hofburg looked great again today. Both their riders were really up against sitting at a big tight hole today to keep them from doing too much. Now they were only 48 hours out from the race, and Hofburg had those ears pricked coming by the wire a couple of times today. He looks like a very happy horse out there. A couple of other notes today I might mention. First of all, for Todd Pletcher, his foursome went out. Noble Indy without blinkers this morning. We told you he had blinkers on yesterday for his gallop session, but that was because he was going to school in the gate. Back out without the blinkers today. I thought Combatant looked good again today. I think he's looked good on a fairly regular basis. Free Drop Billy got a little warm this morning too. He's gotten warm the last several days. Now it has warmed up here, but he was one of the few that actually looked warm in the coat today. A couple of horses that don't make the greatest appearance, and one of those we mentioned yesterday, Bolt D'Oro, takes him a long time to warm up and get smooth out there. And I'm told by my West Coast colleagues that's just him, so maybe we don't pay attention to that. In Still Regards, I don't have a big frame of reference with him, but he too doesn't look real comfortable galloping in the morning. And Audible, he won't catch your eye either. He's not a pretty horse to look at most days when he gallops. Todd Pletcher told me coming in here to expect that. He's a very laid-back horse. All I'm going to say is I saw him gallop and I saw him work prior to his huge effort in the Florida Derby, and he looks a lot better now coming into this race from a gallop and a workout standpoint than he did prior to that big effort in the Florida Derby. No my boy Jack in the track this morning. A little conspicuous by his absence since he only jogged yesterday, but I'm told Thursdays is a regular walk day for the DeSormo barn, so maybe we shouldn't make too much out of that. But, you know, you kind of want to see these horses out there as we get closer and closer to Derby Day. And also the last horse every day for the last 3 days to train among the Derby horses is Enticed. He came out about 9:15. I saw him here in the paddock schooling with bell boots on. I talked to his assistant trainer, Neil McLaughlin. I said, "You just going to jog him today?" He said, "No, I'm going to take the bell boots off and let him gallop." And sure enough, he did. He went 1.5 miles. I thought he looked good. I thought he's had 3 pretty good days here. He's not a great workhorse. You won't be that impressed by him watching him work in the morning, but he's looked good here. He had those ears up this morning going by the wire and got a little tough with his rider as he went into the clubhouse turn the final time around. Among the Oaks, filly, Midnight Basoo came out this morning and did blow out as expected. Just an easy 1/4 mile down the stretch in 26 and change. Well, that's about it from here now. Almost all the preliminary work is done. There will be a special training session very early tomorrow morning for the Derby Oaks horses, I think around 5:30, 5:45. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. Right now the forecast isn't that great for Derby Oaks Day and maybe even Derby Day. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Hope the rain holds off and hope all of you, like I said, enjoyed what we've done here and hope to see you back maybe in about 5-6 weeks as we get to the Belmont, perhaps, who knows, with a Triple Crown on the line.
Let's toss up the field for the Grade 2 $500,000 Churchill Downs Stakes for sprinters. We're going 7 furlongs. Recorded as race number 8 on Kentucky Derby Saturday. For expanded stakes previews again, all the graded stakes races at Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, the number 7 Limousine Liberal, is a very honest horse, but much like Finley's Lucky Charm, a Churchill Downs lover coming out of a blanket finish prep race at Keeneland, Limousine Liberal's coming out of a blanket finish prep race at Keeneland. He was coming off the layoff, however.
Yeah, that was his first start back. It was a lot like that Madison, though, that you're referring to, the Commonwealth last time. It just felt like a bunch of horses had their chance at it in the stretch. Ultimately, it went to a long shot. Limousine Liberal just couldn't quite get there. He's going to sort of try and make the same switch here. He ran in that race last year, and then he came to Churchill Downs and he won on Derby Day, but he did catch a wet track last year. This horse really likes a wet track. I don't know if he's catching one on Saturday. He's good enough to win. I can see him taking a step forward and getting there at the end of the day. I'm not betting him in this race, though. I'm not a huge fan of this horse.
Matt, the morning line favorite, the number 3 Imperial Hint, was an absolute revelation last year when he was right. One after another, triple-digit Beyer speed figures, sparkling performances that culminated in an excellent effort in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And he's just going to get a great trip on Saturday, right?
I think he just parks himself right off the flank of the number 2, Chief Secretries, and at that point, he just takes over. I think it's going to be showtime. We're going to go back and take a look at his seasonal debut, his 5-year-old debut. This was a little Florida-bred race down at Tampa Bay Downs, going 6 furlongs. Javier doesn't move a muscle on him, and I know it was essentially a paid workout, but you have to acknowledge the 3rd-place finisher, Delta Bluesman. He came back and was a next-out winner with a 99 Beyer. I just think Imperial Hint, to me, this could be just absolute blow the doors off this field because he's going to likely work out the best trip. He's 3 for 4 at the distance. That's not going to be a concern. There's not going to be a lot of value there, but I kind of look at it from a multi-race standpoint and say he is a stone cold A for me.
Mike, when he's right, he's one of the better sprinters in the land. I don't think anyone can argue that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that stuff. I'm just not really prepared to go against him in this race. I do like that they're, running him in this kind of a race early in the season, though, because last year I felt like they didn't do that with him and they waited till the Breeders' Cup. Hopefully this year they'll take a more difficult route for him and find out how good he really is, because he just looks really, really good to me. And I just couldn't find anybody to go against him with. If Mark Cassidy does an about face with Awesome Slew and decides to run here, I'll take a little shot with that horse. But it sounds like he's not running here, and I'm sticking with Imperial Hint.
Imperial Hint is way the horse to beat. Matt mentioned Chief Secretries, who is a very fast horse coming in from Turf Paradise. And while he's a bit class compromised and 7 furlongs is probably not his best distance, in many ways, to me, he's the key to this race. Imperial Hint will likely be sitting second off of Chief Secretries, attacking on the turn. If Chief Secretries offers no fight, it could very well be showtime time for Imperial Hint. But if Chief Cicatrice digs in just even for a little while and makes Imperial Hint work, it could set things up for my top selection, the number 1 Whitmore, who's come back firing for trainer Juan Moquet. Let's go back to his most recent start at Oaklawn Park, the Count Fleet Sprint. He is last and under the whip turning into the stretch. He was ridden very conservatively in the early portion of this race and is really only given daylight right about now, inside the 3/16 pole, and he comes with a strong run, admittedly against a weaker field over a track that he likes. I think that Moquet has taken things very, very slowly with Whitmore this year, and that he is going to be cranked up for his best as he makes his third start of the form cycle at Churchill Downs on Saturday. But he's going to need a little bit of help in the form of Chief Cicatrice, because if Chief Cicatrice folds, Imperial Hint could be long gone. I'll take a little stab with Whitmore in the Churchill Downs Stakes. JK's play of the day, of course, is focusing on the Kentucky Derby. David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight. What else? Of course, we've got the Derby. We'll go to those segments, and then we'll come back and take a look at the Turf Classic featuring the return of the Class E Beach Patrol.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Happy Derby. Always one of the most exciting times of the year. Unbelievable undercards, the Kentucky Oaks on Friday and the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. One of my favorite wagers in the Kentucky Derby, an opportunity at a life-changing score, is the Superfecta. Now look, the Superfecta is a tough bet to hit. Obviously, you can take some really low investment attacks at it and try to find a way to get lucky in that spot, but you're better off if you can try to get capitalized. The play that I'm going to give you today is right under $400. Now look, if that's a little bit more than you want to spend, then I encourage you to get one of those friends together that always want your opinion as a horse player on what they should do on the Kentucky Derby. Pool your money together and play a larger ticket with all of your money combined. And here's the ticket that I'm going to give you today. I think Justify is the most likely winner of the race. I think he's going to get a great trip from the 7 post. He should break, sit right outside of Promises Fulfilled. I think he's been really running great races leading up to this race. I do understand the Apollo curse. I do understand that he's a lightly raced horse. I do understand it's a 20-horse field. I understand all of those things. But I also understand once upon a time, 5-2 on American Pharaoh seemed like it was a little bit short for a lot of people, and it was value when you look back on it. I feel the same way about Justify, hopefully, when I wake up Sunday morning. I'm going to use Justify as a lone key horse on top, and then I'm going to use 4 horses in second. I'm going to use the 6, Good Magic, the 8, Lone Sailor at 50-1 on the morning line, the 11, Bolt Doro coming out of the Santa Anita Derby, which I think was a good race, and the 14, Mendelssohn, who ran a huge number over in Dubai. I understand that it was a little bit aided in terms of the rail bias, but I still think that he ran well enough that he deserves some credit. I'm also, and if you'll notice in the third spot, I'm going to use, I think, 9 horses, the 2, the 6, the 8, the 9, the 10, 11, 14, 16, and 18. You should be able to see that on the screen. Some of those horses that I might want to just talk about a little bit, Free Drop Billy should take back, make one run. My Boy Jack, same situation with Kent DeSormo. You're looking for horses that are going to take back, not too much try to win the race, but to hit the board in the Derby. And I think that I wanted to try to include a lot of those. And then we used quite a few in the end, but we did not hit the all button. The all button is a budget killer. We're going to stay away from that. I hope you can be successful here. If not, here's another little bit of an opportunity. Play a $10 exacta. 6, 8, 11, 14 with the 7. Essentially what we're saying here is that Justify is going to run first or second. If he happens to run second and our kind of our secondary key horses run first, we should be able to get our money back that we invested into the Superfecta. If we hit the Superfecta, we should be able to cash a big one.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragon for this week's TimeformUS Spotlight. It's Kentucky Derby week, so we're going to be taking a look at the big race. You guys all know who's in the race by now, so let's head right to the TimeformUS pace projector and see how the early pace of this race is going to set up, because there are a lot of different things that can happen. And let's see what the data says. So number 3 and number 7 horse, that Promises Fulfilled and the favorite Justify, they're the 2 that are predicted heading out towards the lead in this race based on their prior races. Now, everyone generally regards Promises Fulfilled as the likely leader in this race based on what his connections have said about his tactics they'll employ, and the fact that he's just a horse that has run his best races with racing on lead, whereas Justify has shown the ability to stalk in the past. I would imagine that Mike Smith wants to get Justify out early rather than tucking him in behind horses, so he'll have to show some aggression, but I think he's going to be stalking Promises early in this race. Other horses that should be up close to the pace, there are a lot of them. Horses like Magnum Moon, the number 12 horse Enticed, even Bolt Doro, the 11, they all want to be up in that stalking position. So there could be a crush of horses really kind of, vying for that position right in behind the early speeds. And you have horses like Vino Rosso, Audible, who might be coming from a lot farther back in the pack than they're accustomed to, just given all of the stalkers that are going to be trying to cross over before they get to that first turn. So let's take a look at the contenders in this race. And I think we have to start the conversation with the favorite, Justify. He's just an exceptionally talented three-year-old, and that's evident from the TimeformUS speed figures that he's earned in all three of his starts. I mean, a horse that earns a 129 in his first start is, a really special colt, and he is far more talented than many favorites we've seen in Derby's past. Even given the fact that this field is so deep at the top, there's a huge well of talent and many worthy winners in this race. But Justify is still considered to be a legitimate favorite because of how fast he is. Now, at the Santa Anita Derby, I know that he had everything his own way on the front end. And, you could say that he's going to face a completely different situation in this race. And that's true, but he did stalk the pace in his second start. And as long as he gets the mile and a quarter distance, I do think he's going to be tough to beat. The issue is that it's the Kentucky Derby, and there's not a ton of value in betting the favorite. So I'm going to take a shot against him, but I think you have to use Justify on your tickets. Another horse to look at is the horse that finished behind Justify last time, Bolt Doro. Now, he didn't have a perfect setup in the Santa Anita Derby because Justify was able to just control the pace on the front end, and Bolt Doro was the horse chasing him all the way around the track. That's not really an ideal situation for any horse. Bolt Doro has more versatility than Justify. If the pace is pretty hot, I have more faith in Bolt Doro kind of sitting in mid-pack and launching a run, as he showed that he could do last year as a 2-year-old, especially in the Breeders' Juvenile. Bolt Doro's just never run a bad race. I know that he hasn't finished first in his last 3 starts, even though he was put up 2 back in that race at Santa Anita. But he just always showed he's going to be relatively close to the pace. It's not like he's got to come from way out of it. He certainly has tactical speed. I like the rider switch to Victor Espinosa since he knows how to ride these big races. He's going to get this horse out in the clear as long as he breaks well. And I think Bolt Doro is where you want to go here. He's 8-1 on the morning line. To me, that's great value on him. And I'm picking Bolt Doro on top here, but it's a competitive race. Plenty of other horses to check out. Let's look at a few others. 2 for Todd Pletcher I want to discuss. Audible, the number 5 horse. I think he's a major contender in this race. I know there are some questions about him getting the distance, but he's run reasonably fast races. He's got the ability to really finish well in his races. I mean, the final fractions he puts up, the way he kind of just really extends himself at the ends of his races at Gulfstream. I think it bodes well for him getting the distance here, even though he doesn't really have that stamina pedigree. He's one I definitely want to use. We'll take a look at Pletcher's other horse, Magnum Moon, who might be the shortest priced of all the Pletcher horses. I'm a little skeptical of Magnum Moon. I know he's undefeated too, like Justify, but whereas Justify kind of has used his overall speed and power to just kind of drown his foes, Magnum Moon has gotten some pretty favorable setup in his races, especially last time in the Arkansas Derby, where you see the pace figures are color-coded as blue in TimeformUS VPs. That indicates he really had everything his own way on the front end. 2 back, he also got a perfect trip in the Rebel. I just think he's a horse that's really had circumstances in his favor, and if he faces any adversity in the Derby, I think he might underperform. He's one I'll use underneath, but I'm a little worried about him at a short price. One horse coming out of Arkansas that I think you do want to pay attention to is the number 17 horse, Salamini. He's going to be a pretty big price in this race, but trip last time in the Arkansas Derby, the pace was slow. He was kind of out of position throughout. He was very wide around the first turn, very wide around the second turn. He's a real grinding sort who should be able to get the mile and a quarter distance. He's kind of flying under the radar in this race, but I think he's one that could outrun his odds. So I'm making a small bet on Salamini with Salamini on top and definitely using him underneath. But my top play in the Derby is Bolt Doro. I'm using it for Justify, Audible, and Salamini. Let's send it back to the studio.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Again, usually this is our best bet segment, but we want to cover another one of the major stakes races on the Kentucky Derby undercard. The race immediately preceding the Kentucky Derby is the Old Forester Turf Classic. Let's take a look at this field. It is a grade 1 at 1 1/8. $500,000 is the purse. For expanded stakes previews, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover every horse in every graded stakes race in great detail. And Mike, the favorite in this race, Beach Patrol, coming off of a layoff. The now horse with recency is the number 7 Synchrony. Boy, Michael Stidham's gotten this horse good.
Yeah, we'll see if it's just enough here. Listen, I get it. It's folly to go against Chad Brown in these graded stakes races on the grass. I totally understand. Beach Patrol is the best horse. Maybe I can catch him at the right time here off a little bit of a layoff. I'm going to try Synchrony for a couple of reasons. First of all, because you're right. I think this horse has gotten real good since they switched him to turf. The replay we're going to show you is his final start from last year, 2017. This is back in May at Monmouth, and he doesn't win this race. But this was another step in the right direction. He gets wired in this race by Irish Straight, who was also very sharp at this time on the turf. And you can see Irish Straight on the lead here, just not letting Synchrony into the race. But Synchrony runs really well to be second here. He missed about 9 months after this race. He's come back with 2 really nice wins at the fairgrounds. He'll be just off the pace in this race, but we'll see if he can, get some momentum up, make a run at this thing, and maybe he's catching Beach Patrol at the right time. I'm going to try him in this race.
Matt, you like the 3 Kurlov in this race for Chad Brown. He had a really nice trip in his most recent start. The problem is the winner had a better trip than he did.
Yeah, that's the only thing, and kind of the way that I'm looking at that race. Heart to heart, we know what he's capable of when he just walks on the front end. But Kurlov, he worked out a good trip. We're going to take a look at that Gulfstream Park handicap now. I like the way that he tries and he goes after this horse. And again, we've talked about it, heart to heart. He's just a monster when you let him walk out there. I'm hopeful he pulls a similar trip to this on Saturday afternoon, because I don't think there's a ton of speed in this race. And I'd like to think that you may get a forward move. The form of the Gulfstream Park handicap has come back very strong. A couple of 105 buyers with next out winners. You've also had a couple of 100 buyers. I just think Kurlov might be the in-form horse for Chad, and maybe he has a little bit of recency over his uncoupled stablemate.
I have to admit, I'm a huge fanboy of Beach Patrol. The layoff is a little bit of a concern, and he got good when he was really stretched out to longer distances by Chad, but he's shown that he can handle 1.1 miles in the past, and his good tactical speed coupled with his toughness just makes him a horse that you really want to root for. Let's go back to the Breeders' Cup Turf. He ran so well, all things considering at this distance. This is a pretty solid pace, and he's been up on it throughout. He takes the lead, and Talismanic, who got a really nice trip sitting in behind, is going to run him over in the stretch. But just watch Beach Patrol's fight. It looks like for a second he's going to just run third and get real tired, but he's just fighting and trying all the way down to the wire. And that is Beach Patrol in a nutshell. And I think if Chad has him back at 85-90%, he's going to be in the thick of things turning into the stretch. And just based off of his form in 2017, on paper at least, he is the horse to beat. It should be a great Saturday afternoon at Churchill Downs. Of course, the big one is the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby. We'll see if Justify can break the curse of Apollo. We'll see if Mendelssohn can break the UAE Derby jinx. Thanks so much for watching. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.